close to AR, but probably a different bird altogether, is VR. And I'd love to talk a little bit about virtual reality and how that's completely different than augmented reality, even though they seem like they could be. They're probably related some ways and completely different other ways. So give me your take on VR.
So VR definitely is a distant cousin. Well, no, I'll just say cousin of augmented reality. And I've seen some advancements in virtual reality now. I can't think of the guy's name who has a virtual reality church, but I've been seeing him. He's been doing it for a while. I believe he's out of San Diego or something. But the virtual reality aspect is a little different, because once you put that virtual device on, you're immersed into this virtual environment. And I've seen them go and have church in these virtual worlds where he actually has a service and it follows the typical service we see. It's just all virtual. So virtual reality is much more immersive. And the aspect of that is everything is happening in the digital space. So there's no offline component to it, similar to augmented reality. And I think that there's an aspect to that. If we look at the movie that just came out, Ready Player One, I was a big Star Trek fan. So the holodeck on Star Trek Next Generation was a big deal to me. Those type of things, when you're seeing that, that's the type of stuff that's going to be coming in the future. We think now that our kids have their heads in their phones now and only are concerned with the digital space now. Just wait till we see what our grandkids are doing, our great grandkids are, when it comes to the digital space and how immersed they are in that. So again, those things are all coming down the line. We know they're coming. We knew the stuff that we're talking about today was coming when the Jetsons was out back when we were young.
Right.
And everybody was like, oh, wow, seeing somebody who you're talking to on the phone, that's crazy. Because the Jetsons was crazy to us. But now FaceTime is normal. So the thing that I like to see, because the church, I feel like, was innovative in a lot of ways, especially with the printing press and them using mass radio and using mass TV as things came along, is that I want to see them get ahead of the curve on this technology that's coming out, to be able to utilize it again, to be a pioneer in this space, because it has one of the most effective messages that's ever been mentioned.
So outside of church service type experience, and I've heard of those too, you know, what I experienced was I was at a museum with my son, and they had a VR experience, and you put on the goggles and you put on the headphones. And at one point in the experience, there was a cliff, and the cliff was disintegrating and moving towards you. And honestly, when it got to under my feet, I braced myself. It was so immersive. It felt like I was about to lose my footing on this cliff. It's incredible how your brain, like, I know I'm standing on a piece of carpet in a museum, but it's just crazy how your brain interprets all these signals and puts them together. So outside of a church experience or a church service, what other ways will we be using, or do you anticipate, or can you imagine using VR to share our message?
Oh, I think it will be a couple of ways. I think one of the key ones will be telling better stories of biblical stories, or taking the biblical stories and giving them more current application. But if you immersed me in a environment, say a tour of Israel, the biblical tour of Israel, Jerusalem, or stuff like that, and that letting me see certain things, but as I'm seeing these different biblical Holy Land areas, I'm actually watching what happened according to the biblical account. That gives me a totally different perspective on the Bible stories. I think that will be what will start to occur, and that churches will be able to tell different stories. I think there'll be other biblical stories that they'll be able to tell that will have application based on more current settings. So as we look at how do we apply different biblical principles to current life, I think the storytelling in virtual reality will give us the immersive examples. I think children's church will be so much better because the kids will go and have much more immersive experiences, because children's church seems to be much more interactive. It seems to be much more about the kids, being more connected with the church experience, as opposed to one person preaching and everybody listening in our traditional sanctuary. When you go watch children's church, the kids are running around, they're dancing, they're loving. It's an immersive experience for them. Now you take that in the virtual space, and to them, they'll be able to talk about their church experience on a whole different level than adults, especially with their imagination. So to me, I think it'll just become a much more immersive, engaging, innovative experience, and the storytelling will be unparalleled to what we can think about right now. I have an idea of what I can conceptualize, but I don't think me and you really know how great the storytelling will be with those type of tools that the church will be able to utilize.